It's been a strange year. Um, so 2023 has been a year all about rewriting and refactoring things. Disappointingly, I mean, it's just a fact of life with very large software projects, especially a software project of this scope, which also is being written by a complete idiot who doesn't know what he's doing. The first few years of Blockhead, I didn't understand even what Blockhead was or how anything was supposed to work. And so I was just throwing things together. And it's only this year, just reflecting back on it now, that I finally feel like I understand what Blockhead is, which seems like a weird thing to say, but I feel like I have a confident picture in my mind of how everything works and how all the pieces are supposed to fit together. And that's basically because I have finished implementing like the fundamentals of this system now, and I think I have. I mean, I've had that thought in the past as well, and then I realized actually there was more fundamentals that I didn't realize I had yet to implement. I don't know, but anyway, this year it's all been about fixing the code base, basically. Mainly that's what I've been working on. Now that I understand what Blockhead is and how everything's supposed to work, just going back and rewriting things that needed to be rewritten. The main things that happened, I think, this year were the manipulation system and the baking system were rewritten. I knew that they were going to need to be rewritten for ages, and I finally managed to do that. And then I moved a bunch of processing into this intermediate abstraction layer between the UI and the audio thread. Yeah, it's still just like the most important thing is the code right now in Blockhead. There's so much code yet to be written. Like sometimes people try to talk to me about like project management or like give business advice or things like that, and I'm like, yeah, that's a good point, blah blah blah. And then I have this moment where I'm like, none of this fucking matters. The only thing that matters is the code. I just need to write the code, because none of this matters unless the code is written. And I had a sort of running joke for a while, which is still kind of true, in that anytime anybody sort of asked for some kind of estimate or percentage of like what percent done is Blockhead, I would always say 5%. It always feels like 5%. It always feels like I'm nearing the 5% mark, and that hasn't changed. Because every time you implement something, you come up with 10 new ideas. And the more you implement, the clearer the vision and the clearer the sort of scope of the project becomes in your head. So I guess that's it. That's all I want to say about the code. It wasn't just rewriting and refactoring. I added some new stuff, didn't I? I'm pretty sure I did. If we go back and look at the update notes, I guess we can do that now, actually. So All right, 2023. Oh yeah, I added the reinterpret file bytes thing earlier in the year. January's, by the way, I think it's just a coincidence, but January's are always just really stressful times for me. I think it's because I always, just coincidentally, around December and January, I'm always in some kind of big refactoring job, and I always sort of set this bullshit mental milestone in my head of like, I'm just going to finish this by the end of the year, and then next year I'll get to work on some fun stuff that I actually want to work on. And of course I never manage it, and so January it's all like, oh, I'm working on this stuff that I wanted to be done with this stuff by now, and I'm not. So I always get into this like mental rut every January. I shouldn't. It's just the position of the fucking earth, isn't it? Let's see. It's just minor updates. Oh, curved envelope segments I added. And it's just rewrites, and then bug fixes. Oh yeah, I did all this shit. I just resolved so much stuff that had been left unresolved. And sometimes it feels a little bit frustrating when... Frustrating isn't quite the right word, but I'm bad with words, as you can tell. But it feels a little bit something when I'm writing all this code in the background, and I'm just writing so much code, and often the visible end result of all the code that I'm writing is nothing. Like everything's just exactly the same from the user's perspective. Often, maybe there's like a few little improvements. But anyway, it's refactoring stuff. Yes, it all has to be done. I mean, it has to be done eventually. It's just a fact of life with these software projects. Like the code bloats out, particularly a project like Blockhead, where I was just writing things without understanding what the system was initially. Anyway, I'm just repeating myself now. So that's mainly what I've been doing code-wise. I hope that 2024 will be more of a adding new features sort of year, but I'll talk about that more later. All right, so the other big thing that happened this year was for a long time I'd had this idea in the back of my head that I'd just been like posting these little videos on Twitter, and people were taking notice. And Twitter's like the dumbest website on earth, so you have to take what people say with a grain of salt, because everything on Twitter, everything is either the worst thing in the world or the best thing in the world. And so people would like respond to these videos that I was posting and saying crazy things like, this is going to change the audio industry and all this stuff. And I was just sort of like, oh, okay, I don't really know what to think. So I tried to tune that kind of thing out. At the same time, there was this, like, I felt like there's this growing problem all the time of people not really understanding what it was that I was making, or what it was that made Blockhead different from everything else. And so I had the idea in my head for ages that I was going to create this YouTube video just explaining everything. And the idea for a long time was it would be a combined sort of like this is what blockhead is and this is how it's different, and also it would be a tutorial of like how you do basic things, and then get into more complex things maybe. And anyway, I quickly realized that I couldn't stand the sound of my own voice, and I thought that's stupid. That's a stupid problem to have as a 33-year-old. So I decided to start making these development update YouTube videos just to practice talking into a microphone. And as you can tell, it didn't really work. I'm not that much better at talking. But what I found, which is quite interesting, if you're like me, a kind of person who can't stand the sound of your own voice, is that dissipates. In my experience, I mean, everyone's different. In my experience, that goes away really quickly. If you just start making recordings of yourself talking, the gut reaction to the sound of your own voice, you'll never stop hating it, but it won't bother you that you hate it so much. Like you'll still hate it, but it will stop being important that you hate it. That was my experience. Like, it doesn't matter that I hate it. So that was this is a complete digression. What was I talking about? Blockhead, right? So I started making those videos, and then eventually I got to the point of I laboured and laboured over making that video. I tried like 10 runs at it before I finally essentially gave up. I was like, I'm just going to record myself talking and then edit it together. And this was the result. And I've never watched this video, by the way. So there might be like technical glitches or things wrong in the video. I don't know. I haven't seen anybody comment on that kind of stuff. But I recorded myself working in Blockhead and talking. And then I went through in like one pass, edited it together. And then I went back and did some more recordings when I realized I hadn't talked about certain things, and then edited like segments into the video. And then I just really quickly edit it together, and then didn't bother actually watching it back. I just uploaded it. Partly because of the not wanting to listen to myself talk. There's some other subtle psychological thing of being fearful of watching this video back. I don't know what it is. I won't try and psychoanalyze myself or anything. I don't really care. But so I posted that video, and then a few people like wrote some articles about it, I think. And then the patrons just sort of started taking off after that point. And it's been weird. Like I'm not very good at like organizing my own thoughts because I'm partially insane or something. I don't know. I've never been diagnosed for anything because I've never seen a professional or anything. But I just get I always had this like feeling of like that feeling in the back of your mind you get where you're like, I don't even know if this thing that I'm working on is actually any good or if I'm just bullshitting myself. And then, but for a long time I had like Patreon supporters. I would always like just look over that list of Patreon supporters and be like, well, this is a list of people who are not me, like third-party opinions of people who think that this project is interesting enough to support on Patreon at least. Anyway, then I posted this video and I was like, it's just a crazy like-dislike percentage on this video, and I guess you shouldn't pay too much attention to these kind of stats, I suppose, because it's a load of social media bollocks. But and also there's other. I think this is a very human, like psychological thing of 99.4% of people are completely positive about everything that you're doing, and of course the only comments that you're paying any attention to are the 0.6% negative comments. But the funny thing I noticed about that actually is that anytime I see a negative comment, that's the one I remember. But the only thing anybody ever talks about when they're being negative of Blockhead is tempo. And it's because it's obvious it's very transparent why the only thing they ever have anything to say about is tempo. It's because that is what I happen to be talking about in the first 5 minutes of the video. So they're obviously watching the first 5 minutes of the video and then turning it off and then posting their opinion. Because I had to decide what to talk about first. You have to pick something, and it just seemed like a natural thing to talk about tempo first in the video. But personally, I know tempo is... Blockhead handles tempo a little bit weirdly, but it's not one of the most interesting aspects of Blockhead at all. It just happened to be the first thing I talked about. Anyway. So then people started signing up for the Patreon, and it's still going. Like, it kept getting to the point where I was like... Because Patreon draws this graph for you of, like, people signing up. And it just keeps going up, and you can't really see it on this curved graph, but it kept getting to the point where I was watching this line go up. I was like, what the fuck? And it kept sort of like looking like it was about to flatten and taper off. I was like, oh, okay, this is where it stops. This is like where it's going to settle eventually. But it never does. It just keeps going up. Like every day I'm getting more and more people subscribing to the Patreon. So I'm at an slightly awkward position financially now, and it's a very good problem to have, obviously, where I'm making more money than I need to pay rent and buy food and essentials and bills, far more, but nowhere near enough to hire a second C++ programmer, which is really what Blockhead needs, is a second programmer. So that would be... I mean, I still don't know where the finances are going to settle and what's going to happen, but that would be like the next major like funding goal for Blockhead, I guess. And I'm in the process of hiring an accountant. I find there's a local accountant that have an office near to where I live, so I just phoned them up just before Christmas. Just before they were about to close for Christmas, and the guy was like, "I don't understand how crowdfunding works. I'll find out." I was like, "Yeah, I don't understand it either." So I'll be doing that in January, figuring out, or letting them figure out how I'm supposed to pay taxes and stuff. Oh, one expense. Because obviously I can't afford to hire a second C++ developer yet. Um, that's what I really want to do. Like a full-time programmer, that's what I really need. Like, I want to be able to just sit down with someone and just go through the entire code base and explain how everything works, and have somebody working on it full-time with me. It would be so helpful. But we're not there yet financially. Yeah. Well, yeah, in the meantime, I started paying the $10 a month or whatever it is for a GitHub Copilot. That's pretty cool. As somebody who's like generally a sort of AI skeptic, because there's so much fucking marketing bullshit around. Most of the things people say about AI is just complete horseshit. But GitHub Copilot, pretty fucking cool. It's I've just been playing around for the past couple of days. I've been playing around with that. It's pretty good. It just saves on typing. It's not magic. Most of what it suggests is complete rubbish, but it still saves on typing. That's all it does. It just saves on typing. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't do any of the things people say it does. Like, it doesn't reason for you. It doesn't solve any problems. All it does is it figures out what you're about to type and types it for you. So anyway, that's almost like having a second developer. Yeah, in the meantime, I don't know what. I'm just holding the money in my bank account. Need to figure out, because I want to reinvest the money back into the project somehow. Although the first like non-food and rent expense after the Patreon took off, and I was like, oh, I don't have to worry about money anymore. The first thing I bought was some new clothes because some of my clothes were literally just falling apart. I fell down a few weeks ago actually, and I hit my knee so hard that it just ripped a massive hole in my jeans, and it's just a hole that was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I was like, this is dumb. I have money now. I'm gonna buy some clothes that I can wear. Yes. There was as usual, like I was thinking about things that I was going to talk about during this, and I've forgotten all of them. 2024, hopefully I can start working on some actual stuff instead of just working on refactoring and rewriting and optimization all the time. For the past like year and a half, I've been saying the phrase instrument system over and over again. And I was so sure I was going to be working on it soon that I added this tab on the interface. Instruments coming soon. I'm going to stop thinking about that. The instrument system is going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen. But I'm going to stop thinking about it in terms of, oh yeah, I just need to finish this and this and this, and then I can finally get started on the instrument system. I'm going to stop thinking about it in those terms, because it's mentally exhausting to be in that frame of mind where you're planning to get this and this finished so that you can start on a thing. I so often am in that frame of mind, and I don't know why, but it just mentally drains you, because you're never going to get to the point of finally starting the instrument system or whatever it is that you finally want to start. And I'm going to stop thinking about working on things just because it feels like they are important, or or like more fundamental to the way blockhead's supposed to work, because the instrument system will be fundamental. It's going to be like an added layer of fundamentals on top of the existing fundamentals. But just mental health wise, it's better to work on things that I actually want to work on rather than things that I think are important to work on. Does that make sense? I mean, like most of the things that I've been working on for the past 2 years have not been things that I want to work on. They've been things that I judged to be crucial to this system that I'm creating in Blockhead. They're things that that need to be there. Again, words are not my instrument of choice. I don't know how to words. But really what I should be doing is just working on things that I want to work on. Because those things that are important to the functionality of Blockhead, like the obvious things that people always are gonna ask about is MIDI and VST support. Both of those are going to be downstream from the instrument system. Like I've already worked it all out in my head. The instrument system needs to come first. And the instrument system is a very complex thing. The instrument system is going to happen. It's inevitable. It's going to happen eventually anyway, regardless of what I work on. So I might as well just work on things that I actually want to work on. I'm just trying to figure this. Just trying to organize my thoughts, even now, like hearing myself say this shit out loud. I don't think I'm expressing myself properly, but I think it makes sense in my head. So if you, it sounds like I'm talking bollocks, then maybe I am. But I don't care, because it makes sense in my head. Oh yeah, right. This thing that people have been asking about for ages. When you have like some kind of sample, people want to be able to drag this right-hand edge. And you might have like envelope points as well. People want to be able to drag the right-hand edge and squash all of the data down. So sample data and envelope points as well. Kind of like when you add a warp marker and it does that. Or without the looping, I guess. So if you have a sample like that, you want to be able to drag the right-hand edge and do that, but instead of doing that, it would squash it like that, including all of the envelope points inside. So if you have envelope points like this, and you do this, then all of these will be squashed down to like that, whatever. So that is going to be a second mode that you can turn on the right here. In fact, I think I already added an icon for that. Did I? I think this is the current build. Oh yeah, I added an icon for it already. Squash. Squash mode. So when squashing is turned on, you'll be able to squash things around by dragging the right-hand edge or the left-hand edge, and then it will have to interact with there'll be probably some interactions with the tempo guides as well. Yeah, I started thinking about all this in the shower, and I realised it was incredibly interesting, and that's why I want to work on it sometime soon. So maybe next year. Because essentially, I'm going to be the way I'm going to implement it is going to be a scaling factor for each block, and obviously the blockhead canvas is like completely free. There's no like fixed tempo grid. But if you zoom all the way in and start resizing a block like that, you see it snaps to these increments. It's because that is like the pixels of a bitmap. You could think of it that way. It's like there is actually this underlying canvas does have a resolution. It's just extremely high resolution. But if you turn on squash mode and like squash a block down to half its original size, what you're going to be doing is concentrating this part of the canvas into a smaller area. It's like compressing the atoms into a smaller area, so it has greater mass. In physics terms, I suppose. So if this is like, again, if you think of this as like the pixels of a bitmap, these increments you can see here when you zoom all the way in. If this is like 10,000 pixels or whatever, if you turn on squash and then squash it down, it's still 10,000 within this smaller area. I think that has some really... And also you could stretch it out as well, and it's still always 10,000 inside a bigger area now. By the way, I fixed all these waveform issues now that we're seeing. In the new build, it's not gonna see all these stupid waveform issues, which I'm very happy about. The new waveform code is so beautiful. It's not done yet, but it's what I've done so far I'm very happy with. And it's not going to have all these stupid caching issues. So yeah, I want to add the squashing thing. The other thing I've been wanting to do for ages is, ability to right click and say save to file. I've already got a menu item for it, but it doesn't do anything. So you could save a block to a file, and that includes a macro block, for example. Save a macro block to a file and then load it into another project, and the file will just contain everything that's required for the block. If the block has sample data associated with it, then the sample will be contained inside the file, optionally. Also, all of the sample blocks and the effects and the synthesizers all have plugins associated with them. The plugins, the blockhead plugins, are extremely small. They're just DLLs, and they're very small. They're like the size of samples. So I could also optionally, I could have the option to also package the plugin inside a block when you save it as well, so that they're completely portable.